This is a rank 1822 Soldier 76 that we're going to be reviewing. We're going to take a look at this game, which does end in a win. So we're going to see a pretty decent performance, but there will still be some mistakes.
You can look at actually them both.
Generally, I prefer to review losing games because honestly, I think there's more to be learned from a losing game.
Well, anyways.
We're all soldiers now.
And one thing that you can do as well is self-review, which is probably the one thing that has helped me out the most.
Please don't complain.
Looking at this team comp, it's not bad. You have a shield tank with the Orisa, and then you have an off tank with Zarya. Zarya is generally pretty good.
Attackers incoming in 30 seconds.
Especially in these ranks where people don't pay attention as much to avoiding shooting Zarya bubbles. This position you're in right now, I would not recommend, but you have a lot of high ground positions that you could take, especially behind you. There's several platforms up there that are just meant for Soldier. I know, I wouldn't stand there, especially in view of that window, because you could have a Widowmaker that already has their sights trained on your head as the door opens. And if a Widow gets an insta-pick on you, you can basically consider this point lost. So, there's a platform behind you. I would really prefer that you were up on that. It would make you harder to reach for the Reaper. And in general, it'd be a safer position. You'd also be set up a lot better for attack visor.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Attack visors always work best from the high ground or from a flank position if you can get the element of surprise. One thing I don't necessarily like is how far forward your Orisa's shield was. And this is something you can suggest to your teammates respectfully and politely, but try to avoid having direct lines of sight to the enemy's spawn, because what that allows them to do is spam your tank's shields all the while they're walking up from spawn. Your mechanics aren't too bad, to be honest. Now, see, if you were up there on that platform, which is where I really would want to see you, you would be able to easily challenge that Sombra and force her to retreat. Alright, you have tack visor. When you have visor, you know how mercies, you know how good mercies know when to hide. Okay, this is not good. So if you were up top, you would not have gotten caught in that Graviton, and that Genji completely wiped you guys. You could have been up top to pop your visor, and you could have completely negated that. As soon as the Graviton came out, bang, pop your visor, and kill that Genji before he's able to slice and dice.
This just like probably will delay.
Alright, at this point, there's a high ground position behind you, and you should be trying to get up to that. It's right there above your Zen's head. Okay, do not fight a Reaper in close quarters. That's extremely risky.
Hacker behind.
So, in this amount of time, You could be pretty close to having another attack visor if you would have used it, if you would have been in the proper position to use it when you had that graviton blade combo that wiped your team. If you would have been in the right position to use it then, and you did use it then, you would pretty much have it built back up again. Alright, so you're in a bad spot right now where you're having minimal effect on the game. And now you got way... Okay, this is a very bad spot to ult. You're in a confined space where Reaper can absolutely destroy you, and you are right next to a gigantic res. Granted, I don't expect you to predict that res coming, but that confined space is just a bad spot to be. Always try for the high ground. So don't go through here. Go left. No, no, no. Go up those stairs that were behind you. You're shooting Zarya bubbles again. You just pounded that Zarya bubble. That gave the Zarya 40 charge, which is not good. Now that Zarya is going to be able to melt everyone else.
Play down more, stay behind the walls.
Where?
Up there.
Okay, you're hacked. Okay, now you're finally going up to the high ground that you should have been on this entire time. Okay.
Sorry.
That's a pretty fat dot for a reticle for soldier. Alright, this is not a good spot you're getting in. You are way too far behind the cart. You're right up in enemy lines right now. You need to get back with your team. With that spam, all you're doing is you're actually just feeding their Mercy alt charge towards her res, if she doesn't have it up already. Probably not. Not quite yet. Getting some good damage into that Orisa, but you gotta remember, every time you pump damage into the enemy and you don't confirm a kill, their healers get that all back as alt charge as they heal their teammates. So this spam is not doing anything for you.
Yeah, some hacker behind.
Okay.
Hacker behind.
Just go get him.
Yep, we know Genji already used his deflect, so you're safe to Helix. Okay, Mercy snuck up behind you. See, here's one thing you would have been if you were in with your teammates rather than basically where the enemy should be standing. You would have seen that Mercy approaching for that res. That res allowed them to initiate and completely roll you. You might have been able to shut down that Mercy if you were looking the right direction. Okay, that Genji deflected your Helix. You should visor this. Okay, good.
Well, nice. Very nice. You got.
Alright. Good transcendence out of your Zen, keeping you alive. And clean up.
Guys.
Alright.
If we lose, guys, if we lose,
Stop going in, Winston. Oh, Kira, good job, good job.
guys. By the way, guys, if we lose this, don't blame. I have 10k healing already.
So one thing, I want to go back. I think that Reaper got away from you. I'm gonna go back.
You got.
Okay. Yes. That Reaper got away from you, and he was
If we
basically a melee hit away from death.
Stop going in,
You should have
Winston.
pushed him
Oh, Kira, good job, good job.
and killed him, because now what he's going to do is he's either going to use a health pack, or worse yet, he's going to get back to his healers, and they're going to get some more alt charge.
10k healing already, so.
Okay, stay back. Don't get sucked into that. Good.
Mercy. Awesome.
Okay, if you go over to... If you just move to the right a little bit, you can get around that Orisa shield. Okay. Good, you didn't get killed by that Death Blossom. This isn't looking too good right now.
Nice, guys. There's no time left.
Alright. Gonna go Diva here.
Nice.
Try and contest it.
Oh, I got killed. Shit.
Probably not a bad idea, honestly, because you only had one tank. That was probably a good decision to go Diva.
Nice.
You can get out to the payload quickly.
That's my Reaper.
You have a lot of health. You can absorb a lot of damage with the Matrix. So that's probably not a bad decision.
It's like 2
Yeah.
points.
I can't say for sure whether or not it was game changing, but it worked out. You did get them off the payload
Yeah,
before they were able to push it all the way.
You
Wait,
know,
oh,
we
Crescent.
should go Bastion because
Crescent.
they have good game.
You're that soldier who had 2 AFKs. Yeah, I remember you won 1 round, 5 versus 6, then you quit, I guess. Yeah, I was Reaper against you, I guess.
Guys, I'm gonna heal you, but
It was good. Guys, can we get a Mercy? Mercy is like, it's really important.
the
Yeah, we need
Yeah.
Mercy.
And
That
it's-
Mercy was awesome, guys.
Oh yeah,
I
thanks.
can play Mercy.
Yeah,
Well,
it's up to you, though.
if somebody else wants to play tank, I can play healer.
I will play tank.
Or you can play it.
But you were a good healer.
Oh, thanks.
Not to get yourselves killed out there.
You should give him healer. Oh, yeah. That's good. That's right.
Now, one thing to, I don't know if you're worrying too much about it, looking at the stats, but don't worry too much about the damage done or the limbs, because one thing to remember is that a Winston just jumping on everyone and just touching them, he could lightly tickle them with his Tesla cannon, and he could touch 6 people, and if the rest of your teammates actually did the heavy lifting and you did the heavy lifting to actually confirm the kills, Winston will still get elimination credit through assists. So don't make comparisons based on medals, because they're really not accurate. All right, so there's some really good positions you can also take on attack. One of them is over in the theater on your right. You should go up the stairs, and there's a platform that overlooks this courtyard. It's a really good spot for soldier. And once your team is pushed up far enough, you can jump out of that window and then go to your right and then up those stairs and up to the platform. There's a platform on your right, and you can rocket jump across there and get all the way around and behind them up in that window. You see that window above your Mercy's head. You can get up there, and that would be a great position to be in if you get attack visor. The only thing you really have to worry about if you're going to visor from that position is Diva
Stay with the payload, stay with the payload.
with a full matrix. Okay, stop shooting Zarya's bubble. That's really bad.
Hit mid.
You're doing nothing but helping the enemy by shooting her bubble.
Sorry, couldn't
my
see you.
God.
You were moving too fast.
And I don't see justification for trying to shoot through it.
I will.
Genji got me, that's why I was asking.
Right now, you guys are just doing poke damage to each other. Now, if Zarya was the only one left,
Mercy's healing him, he got off the heal.
and she was all by herself and you had a full team, uh-oh, that's not good. You could just basically focus the Zarya and shoot through her and shoot through her shields, burn them down, just to try and kill her as fast as possible. That would be okay.
Oh, nice. Now we
If
got
you're in a
five
situation
votes.
where you know you can confirm a kill on the Zarya. Alright. So now you have visor, so you should be going inside the building on your right, going up the stairs, and getting into that window where your Reaper was.
Wait.
That would be an amazing spot to visor from.
Thanks.
Come on, guys.
This is awesome. Your Zen is on point with these trances.
Well, you
The Zen is doing an incredible job of countering Genji. Okay. This is not a good spot to ult from. Yep, and you're dead. So you really need to try for high ground. Your Reaper cleaned up there, so that's good.
The war goes on.
But see that window right above you? That's where you should have been when you used that tac visor.
I'm wasting
Okay,
my power.
did you see that? Okay, you missed something really important.
Guys, I'm just
You missed something really important. I'm going to show it again. Right here when you come around the corner. Did you see that?
guys, I'm just
Did you see that? Right there. Alright. Okay, did you see this little purple flash right here? That right there was a Sombra going invis. You should be spamming shots out here to try and get her out of invis.
I'm wasting
guys,
my
I'm just gonna
power.
sit on the payload.
And you see she's contesting the payload. And there she is.
I'm wasting my power.
Behind you,
That Sombra just burned at least 5 seconds
The hacker's behind.
of time moving the payload. Maybe even more. And then she even got out alive. Which is really bad. If you would have been able to shoot her out of invisibility there, if you had seen that little flash of purple, you could have kept her from contesting the payload. And she still might have gotten away, but at least she wouldn't have been stopping the payload from moving. And if she did, she likely would have gotten killed by your teammates. 'Cause she wouldn't have had the element of surprise. Okay. Right now, okay, that was a decent kill on the Zarya. You need to be careful though, because you're down big time in numbers. That was a good kill on the Reaper. You're doing pretty good, honestly,
Okay, keep
right now.
GPS. You have to be more concentrated.
Dude, I'm dead. That's all.
Soldier, you can swap. Soldier. Soldier, you can go down.
That's the one thing I would prefer to see a losing game for review, because there will be more mistakes to learn from, but there's things to learn from every game. Okay, you guys are doing good. Okay, stop shooting the Zarya bubble. Don't shoot Zarya bubbles.
Genji. Shit.
Okay, your Zen is on top of it. Huge props to your Zen. You guys could have gotten wiped out there. Okay, you're shooting Zarya bubbles again. Stop doing that. Honestly, if I had one thing I had to pick out in this entire game, my biggest peeve is how much you shoot Zarya bubbles. Okay, you need to be careful there because you had an enemy Reaper ulting off to your side on the other side of the payload. So that was a very risky visor. Cheeky. Hiding right there next to the payload. Someone called out above you, that's good. I'm not going to go back and look and see who made that call out, but that was a good call out. Although it was a little bit too late to react to, but... Okay, there's a Sombra in there. Okay, forget the Sombra, kill this Mercy. When you see a healer like that get up in your face, you need to focus her. Okay, you're shooting at the Sombra that's being healed by a Mercy. You're not going to kill the Sombra because she moves too fast until you kill the Mercy. And you're shooting Zarya's bubbles again. Okay. Push the payload all the way. In summary, use high ground.
God damn, I haven't.
Always try to get up high. Think about it. Think about the positions you can go. Look up every now and then. Look up and see, there's a platform there. Can I get up to that? And it'll set you up for better tac visors. Just like when you got wiped out by that Zarya and the Genji. If you would have been up top, you would have been in a position where you wouldn't have gotten caught, basically with your pants around your ankles. and you would have been able to shut down that Genji with attack visor before he was able to get much use out of his blade.
Hey, that's pretty great.
So your Reaper was popping off. 75% kill participation is actually impressive. 44 limbs is pretty good. Friend requests. You just wait. They're gonna be telling you how bad you suck after the first game they lose when they're grouped with you. Alright. So in summary, the other thing besides high ground is stop shooting Zarya bubbles. Don't do it. Just resist the urge. They don't last that long. You only need a couple seconds to wait for it to go away on its own. And what you'll do is you'll go a long ways towards making that Zarya hugely ineffective, because a Zarya without charge is basically useless. It's like trying to beat people with a wet noodle if you're Zarya and you don't have any charge. But on the flip side, a fully charged Zarya is an absolute monster. Fully charged Zaryas are just flat out scary. And also, when she's fully charged and doing that damage to your teammates, she's building up her graviton much faster. Because your alt charge is proportionate to how much damage you do when you're doing DPS. And for healers, the alt charge is proportionate to how much healing they do. And so when you damage enemies, but you let them get away, and sometimes you do have to let them get away because otherwise you'll end up risking killing yourself in the process, that enemy will run back to their healers and their healers will get more alt charge off of that. So when you're doing these cheesy flanks, like you were doing where you really got caught out away from your team, all you were doing there is some poke damage, and you're building your ultimate, but you are also feeding the enemy healers ultimates as well, especially Resurrect, which is a extremely powerful ultimate. One thing I'd like to point out is, like with Mercies, the way good Mercy kind of taps into those spidey senses, knowing when to hide with res. When you have Tac Visor, you need to be also paying attention to when you think a big team wipe might be coming. You need to think about the calm before the storm is a really good indicator. When things start getting quiet, they get quiet for a few seconds, and just sitting there, not much is happening. You should expect a big push to be coming, and probably several ultimates to also be flung at you as well. In that case, you should be getting back up to high ground, up to a position where you can pop out and use your ultimate. And catch the enemy off guard. And the prime example is that Graviton Dragon Blade combo where they pretty much wiped your team. Again, if you were on the high ground there and you had your Tac Visor ready, which you did, if you were positioned on the high ground and didn't get caught in that Graviton, that fight could have gone very differently from the way it did. There's also a very specific animation cancel with Soldier, and it has to do with his biotic field and his ultimate. You can hit E and drop your biotic field. As soon as you hit E, tap Q or whatever button you have linked to your ultimate. Drop your biotic field and immediately pop your visor, and that will cancel the animation of Soldier putting his biotic field down, and he'll immediately go into attack visor, hit EQ, EQ. That fast, you can hit EQ and he'll drop a biotic field and visor. And you should make a habit of always dropping your biotic field before you visor. There's no reason to visor without using your biotic field unless you have a situation where it's on cooldown and you're confident that you can kill the enemy before they kill you. But those are little tricks with Soldier that you can use to gain an extra advantage. But mechanically, I don't see too many issues. Your aim is decent. It's definitely not as bad as I've seen some players at this rank. So your aim's not holding you back. It's mostly positioning, being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and doing things like charging up Zarya's bubbles. So if you make a point of positioning yourself on the high ground, what you'll find is over time, there's an element of randomness that plays into this, but if you can shift things in your favor, even slightly, that will eventually translate to a gain in rank. So you won't be able to apply all these tips and see overnight improvements. You might, but it's more likely it's something that you'll see over a week. If you're always paying attention to the high ground, it's like, and you're always thinking, you're always keeping a mental note, where is the high ground? Where can I go up to? And you go up to that high ground, you will increase your chances, the probabilities of being in the right place at the right time. So it's all about probabilities, and it's all about randomness. And so that's why if you're on a losing streak, taking a break can make a huge difference, because you add another element of randomness into the matchmaking. If you just keep queuing up game after game after game, you're likely going to be getting a lot of the same people, and it's going to get stagnated. The hero pool or the player pool is going to get stagnated. And it's just going to feel like an endless loop. Just you're grinding and not making any progress. And so taking a break is really good. If you're having a bad series of games, sitting out for 10 minutes is all it takes to get a completely different set of players. And if you find yourself getting frustrated, taking a longer break than 10 minutes is also really good. It can help you cool off. You can go back, especially if you're recording your games. I would strongly recommend self-review. It's a very powerful tool, and you don't have, and just because you think, oh, I'm only, low gold and I can't, and reviewing myself doesn't make sense because I don't know what I don't know. That's not necessarily true. There's one rule of thumb you can go off of, and that is, if you died, you need to look at that and see, why did I get killed in this scenario? What could I have done differently to avoid dying? And that's the way you can go about analyzing your own gameplay. And it'll start causing you to think critically about your decisions in the game and the consequences of those decisions. And so try reviewing your own videos. What I do is, I typically only do this with losing games, but I have shadow play set up to DVR the last 5 minutes, and at the end of a losing game, I'll hit my hotkey on my keyboard and save the last 5 minutes of a losing game. That way I don't have to sit through a 20-minute long game to review. It's short and sweet, and in those 5 minutes, I can usually pick up 1 or 2 tips or 1 or 2 mistakes that I can try to correct in the next game. And that's probably the biggest tip that I can give you that that at least helped me to rank up and improve. Not necessarily rank up, but improve. If you focus on improving, the rank will come. So improving is first, and the rank is a side effect of getting better at the game. So with that, go out and have some good games, and look forward to seeing if this helps or not.